I'd like to welcome you today to our online info session for the Mental Health and Addiction Support Worker Program at Ashton College. My name is Ashley, and I am from the Marketing and Communications team. We have Jessica here today, who is a part of the Human Services faculty at Ashton College, and she will be answering questions about the Mental Health and Addiction Support Worker Program and its career path. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. And as well, we have Demi in the back end monitoring our online chat. So there's a lot of ways to engage with us during the session, and we love hearing your questions. So on Zoom, you can use the chat box, the question and answer box, or the hand raise function. And if you're tuning in on Facebook Live, you can leave us a comment and we will be able to answer your questions live during the session. If there's any program administration or admission questions, I will save those until the end, but I will answer those still. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you can leave us a comment or give us a call at 604-899-0803 or toll free at 1-866-759-6006. So a little bit about the program before we start. I'll share some of the program dates and costs with you. Both the online and in-class sessions start on September 12th. Webinars are held Monday to Friday from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. PST. And for those of you choosing the in-class options, classes are held Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. PST. The application fee is $40 for domestic students and $140 for international students. The tuition fee is $5,400 for domestic students and $6,750 for international students. There is also a 60-hour practicum at the end of the program, and all this information can be found on our program webpage. Please be aware that the application deadline for September cohort is today. However, we will accept late applications with no penalties until the end of the week. All right, on to our interview portion. Jessica, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you start by sharing with us what made you want to get into this field? How'd you get started?
So, so initially when I started going to school, I had a different career path in mind, but then I started volunteering at a drop-in center. And when I was volunteering at the drop-in center, I saw the difference that I could make with just having a connection with the woman and just listening to them. So I was like, and it made me feel good when I was able to make a difference in these women's lives. And so from there, I changed my career path. And so I've been in the substance use mental health field for about 13 years. So I did do a community counseling skills certificate. And through there, I had a practicum where I worked at a substance use, at a treatment center, sorry. So that was my practicum. And then from there, I've just kind of been moving up towards where I am now, but it was really the difference that I make in other people's lives. Such a simple thing, that human connection that we need.
Absolutely. That's special. And what was your educational background? Where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I went to SFU. So I graduated with my bachelor's of arts, majored in criminology, and then I have a community counseling skills certificate that was from VCC, and now I'm doing my master's in counseling psychology, and that's with Yorkville University.
That's very exciting. And your career experience, you kind of just said some of it, but it sounds like you've been in a lot of different fields.
Yes. Well, this field, but a lot of different experience. So I worked, so I volunteered with actually the Maida Duncan Drop-In Center, which is in New Westminster through Elizabeth Fry. And that's kind of where I think that would be the start of my journey in the mental health field. So that I volunteered there for probably about 4 or 5 years. And then I worked with Phoenix, which is a residential treatment center out in Surrey. So I did that for a little bit. And then I worked in Calgary with the Child and Family Services, but with an Indigenous agency where we were working with any Indigenous family that was connecting with Child and Family Services. And we're providing support to see how we can ensure that the kids were staying with their families. So sometimes it was referring to a counselor for mental health stuff. Maybe it was concurrent disorders, or it was substance use, so like to treatment centers, but a lot of it was also that connection building. I was actually just telling my sister-in-law last night, I think in this field, sometimes you apply for jobs, but you can't write everything down in the job description. Like I remember once there was a blizzard and I went to go deliver diapers to one of my clients, but that was one of my initial visits. So I was like, parked my car at the bottom of a snowy hill and walked up this hill to go give her diapers. But it was that start of that connection, and it was a good relationship. After that, of course, there was other things that I did as well. And then I worked with an Indigenous agency out in Surrey. So it was with any children who were in permanent care. So trying to find families for them to reconnecting them with their families. So sometimes it was like I went to New Brunswick for a trip to connect children to their families, so to find them permanent placement. And then I worked with a school district. So I was working as a substance use prevention and health promotion worker for the last few years.
Oh.
So kind of lots of experience with substance use and mental health. And then I also did work as a substance use counselor as well, for a youth substance use counselor.
Oh, that's incredible. I bet you have a million stories. It is really cool, the human connection that you could make in this job position.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with Ashton College?
So with Ashton College, so something I've been working in this field for, I think I said like about 13 years. And so something that I do actually like how the program's laid out. So it's like you start off with the mental health course, and then it's building on, and then you have the practicum. But I really want to be able to share my things that I have learned throughout the years that I've been working, and share that information to future students, people who are going to be working in the field, because I do think it's a great field to work in. And I want to, just share my knowledge, share what I have.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm sure you have a million stories. You sound like you have a lot of experience. What do you think about the program is beneficial for students? What do you think the students will enjoy or appreciate the most?
Okay, so I do, with the instructors, there is a diverse, like from the instructors, if you read everyone's all, oh my goodness, what is it? The transcript piece.
Yeah.
There is a diverse background. So we all bring something different to the table. So you're going to be learning something different from each of us. So like I just shared my experience, but I know there's some people who worked in the healthcare. So maybe there's social worker or someone working as a nurse, right? So there's that diverse experience that you're going to be hearing from each person. But then also, like I said earlier, we start off with introduction to mental health, but then building on where to each of the courses. And then the last one is the health promotion, prevention and harm reduction, and then the practicum. And I think practicum is so amazing to have, because if you don't have that practical piece, it's going to be confusing when you go into the job field, as knowing which area you want to work in.
Absolutely. I think hands-on practicums are such a great piece to programs.
Oh,
It
yeah.
gets you way more prepared for the workplace whole. What would you say your teaching style is like?
So my teaching style, I would say I'm approachable. I do share a lot of stories. So from stories that I've heard. So I try to relate things back to the course material. And for myself, I find that helpful. And I think other people find that helpful as well, is that real life experience. But I think the approachable piece as well, and just being open.
Mhm. Absolutely. It sounds very encouraging. What are your expectations of students who enroll in the program? How much study time will students need each week to be successful?
Yeah, I would say to be successful in the program. So this program, so even when you are done, you're going to be studying and learning while you are working in the field. So it's ongoing studying. So this is just a start of that, I think. So I would say about 20 hours per week, and then don't be afraid to ask questions if things come up. Message your instructors, ask in class, ask questions, right? That's how you learn. But I would say about 20 hours per week.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some of the career options or typical next steps for students after they graduate from the program?
Okay, so something I would recommend throughout the program is looking for, so just making a list of different options of places that you can work in, and that would help with when you are going into practicum. But different things career paths could be working as a support worker, so a mental health addiction support worker, working as a youth worker, so that could be working with the health authorities, working in the schools. So there are, depending on what you want to do as well, are you wanting to work for a government agency, are you wanting to work for a nonprofit? This field, there is a lot of options and different agencies to choose from.
That's cool. And what about like volunteering in an area that you're interested in? Is that a good place to start as well, maybe?
Yeah, I would say volunteering would be huge. That's how I got into the field too, is to
Absolutely.
volunteer. Yeah.
What would a typical day in the life for the job position be? I know that you kind of explained a lot of different areas, so I don't think, is there a typical day in the life?
There is no typical day. It's different from day to day and depending on where you're working as well. And I think that's something that I like about the field is that it's so different each day. You're meeting so many different people and not one day is going to be the exact same as the next day. So you're never going to be bored. You're out in the community. Sometimes you might be in the office doing work, but you have that fine balance and you do, at least from all the places that I've seen, you have an opportunity to kind of create and be creative with your positions. So whether it's doing youth groups or doing just like parent groups, whatever it might be.
Makes sense. So what advice would you give to students who are brand new to the industry or changing careers from something radically different?
Okay, one, I think a big piece of advice is when you are starting in the field, you want it, and for most people it is because you're wanting to help other people. So you're only one person, you need to take care of yourself, and that is so important, that self-care piece. I know when I first started, that was I used to sometimes answer my phone at like 2, 3 a.m. But then you slowly start burning out. And I remember a colleague, and it stuck with me. She was like, you need to help your clients while you're working, but then provide them with information so that they're able to support themselves when you're not working there. But also taking care of yourself, because if you're burnt out, how are you going to help other people? So it is really important to have that work-life balance and having that boundary. So you're off at, I don't know, say if it's 5 p.m., you are off at 5 p.m., right? And then you need to have things that you do in your life for self-care. So whether that's working out, going for a hike, meditation, whatever your self-care practices are, be consistent with those and take care of you.
I think that's incredible advice. I think that's so important for dealing with anyone with mental health. You always have to remember to give yourself that time too.
Yeah. And it is like, it's a heavy field to work in. So you're hearing a lot of stories. So then the other piece of that self-care would be maybe seeing your own counselor. So seeing a therapist on the side, which is helpful.
Absolutely. That's really good advice. What qualities or characteristics make people best suited for this career path?
So you have to be patient. So working in addiction and mental health. So with addiction, like there's sometimes you might have a client where they aren't using, but then they are using and then they kind of stop using, and then maybe they might have a relapse. So relapse is something that's normal, and you need to be patient with your clients and understanding. I think having empathy, right? Being very empathic, and meeting your clients where they're at. So not setting your own goals and putting those on your clients. You really need to work with your clients. This is a collaborative process, and you're a support piece for your client.
That makes sense. We had someone on the Zoom audience ask about experience. I asked Carlos to expand on that a bit. I'm not sure if they're asking about your experience or what experience they might need to get into the program.
Okay.
Carlos raised their hand.
Your mic is on mute. You can
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I meant in this field, like a lot of the experience working in this field every day in harm reduction, it kind of adds to, what I do. I've worked in the shelters and harm reduction, as well as in the drop center and in the overdose prevention department. And you kind of get a feel firsthand of what it's like for a lot of these folks who have experienced trauma, and the trauma's led them into their addiction, or, you know, something along the lines of that. So I was just pretty much saying experience as in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Did you have anything to add to that?
No.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Carlos.
The next question was, how has the industry changed during your years of experience?
So I think from when I started to now, there's a lot more conversations being had. We weren't, I would say, even a few years ago, pre-pandemic, we weren't hearing as much about the overdose crisis. And there's a lot of people dying, right? We weren't here, and we still aren't that as much as we could be, but we weren't hearing anything about mental health and substance use in the province, or even just, I guess, around the world. But it is something that's being talked about a lot more. And I see that even just in my own circles, where people are talking about mental health and wanting to get support, where there was a lot more stigma around it before. And that's why something with, there's the health promotion, prevention, and harm reduction class, where I think that's such a good class to have, because that's a class that will help with even just talking about language that we need to use, and helping with reducing the barriers and reducing stigma.
Yeah, that is very good. I would love to open up the floor to any questions. Feel free to raise your hand or drop your questions in our chat box. We'll give a minute or so for people to maybe think about that.
So we do have a question from Facebook Live, and it says, does Ashton have any partnership or alignment for this program?
We do have program accreditation. The Ashton College Mental Health and Addiction Support Worker Certificate is proudly accredited by the Canadian Addiction Counselors Certification Federation, which is internationally recognized as the gold standard provider in addiction credentialing, both in Canada and on the international stage. Accreditation means that our program meets the criteria and competencies required for both Canadian and international certifications. Ashton graduates of the Mental Health and Addiction Support Worker Certificate will satisfy the education requirements to become a Canadian Certified Addiction Counselor or an International Certified Alcohol and Drug Counselor. So graduates will also be able to count 120 hours from their studies towards part of their clinical supervision time required for certification. And the CCAC and ICADC designation requires you, as part of the process of obtaining your certification, to write and pass an exam through CACCF. And for more information about the accreditation, please visit the program webpage.
Perfect, thank you. We do also have another question in the Q&A box, and I think this one is for Jessica, and it says, is it helpful or harmful to have personal experience with addiction and trauma, say if you are in recovery?
Yeah, and I think, so that's a really good question. I think it was Chloe that asked that. So it depends. So if a person is in recovery, I would say you have to remember that each person has their own experience. So when you are working with a client, say if they're struggling with addiction, your experience can help in the sense that maybe you can talk about things that have helped you, but also remembering that you only want to share so much information, right? You don't want to share too much personal information about yourself, but you have that experience where you can share as much as you feel comfortable, which would be helpful. But if the part where it'd be harmful is if you are still in recovery and you don't have that support. So there might be things where a client says something and it's triggering. So just remembering to have your supports in place. So have supports for yourself in place, and that goes back to that self-care piece. But I do think it could be helpful to have personal experience for sure. And I have worked alongside many addictions counselors who have past experience. But again, going back to that self-care piece, remember to take care of yourselves. I hope that helps, that answers that question.
So I do see another question in chat and it says when other start dates, and I think I can help with answering this one. So our program is starting September 12th. As Ashley mentioned, the application deadline is actually today, but we are accepting late application with no penalties till the end of the week. So this is a September cohort, and I think we do have another cohort starting in November, but the exact dates will be published on our webpage soon. So just keep up for that. And I do have another question for Jessica, and it says, what are the specific topics that students can expect to learn from this program?
Sorry, I muted myself. So different topics that you can learn are, so you're learning about different mental illnesses. So there is a course, I believe it's a mental illness and intervention class where you will be actually going through the DSM-5. So that's actually really helpful to have. You'll learn about substance use disorders and addictions. You'll learn about concurrent disorders. And then again, like I said, that health promotion, prevention, and harm reduction piece. And then you'll learn about barriers to accessing treatment in Canada and then maybe even internationally as well. You'll learn about how to identify different illnesses and then how to support a client.
Thank you. Were there any more questions, Demi?
Yeah, just one more. What are your thoughts on the labor market? How much can like an entry-level mental health support worker expect to make? And what is the job market like right now?
So I would say the job market, like I said before, there was a lot of stigma and not a lot of conversations happening around mental health and substance use, but I think people are now starting to see that it is something that we need to be addressing. So there are quite a few, like I've been looking and again, working in the field, I see there are a lot of job options out there. And again, depending on where you want to work, are you wanting to work in a private sector? So are you wanting to work with a school, a healthcare? Are you wanting to work with nonprofit? But again, there is a lot of options out there. And I would say, I'm not sure about future, but I am going to say from just like the experience that I have that it is something that's going to continue to grow. This field is something there is just, yeah, lots of room for growth. And then, sorry, was there another part to that question?
I'm not sure if you already answered it, but the other part was what's the expected salary for like entry-level workers?
Yeah, I would say, again, it depending on where you're working. So it would be about $20 to $30.
Perfect, thank you.
No worries.
Was that the rest of the questions?
Yeah, I don't see any other questions in chat or in the Q&A box.
All right, perfect. Jessica, do you have any final words of advice or thoughts to share?
It's a good question. I think when you are working in this field, and when you are doing your program, there are going to be days that are hard. So when you are going through the program, I know when I did my counseling skills certificate, and now being in my master's in counseling, like not only are you learning about how to help other people, but you're learning a lot about yourself. So it's really important that you are, again, taking care of yourself. So whatever your self-care practices are, is to continue through, like start those now if you aren't already doing things in your life and continue throughout your program. That's the biggest piece of advice. Like there's only one of you. You can only do so much, but you need to help yourself before you can help other people. And I know cliche, but we always hear this in the airplanes where it's, they ask you to put your mask on before you help put another person's oxygen mask on, because you need to be able to breathe to help others, right? So it is really important to take care of yourself. And then I think being patient, and you have to really love what you're doing. So finding that place. So through practicum, you'll find you'll be able to explore different places. So I think really start from the beginning, write a list of places down and call them. I used to call people and and I still do that. Hey, can you tell me a little bit more about your agency? Go there, get a feel for the place to see, is this the right fit for me?
That's really good advice. I agree with that. And I think those are really important things to remember. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. This has been so insightful, and I love taking the opportunity to have a conversation with someone very experienced with hands-on knowledge about the program. And I do think new students will be very lucky to have you as their teacher. You sound very experienced and well-spoken. To find out more information, you can all find all of the links in our description or check out our website to read all about the program information or learn about the registration process. Thank you everyone so much for joining us, and I hope you have a really great rest of your day. Thanks again, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you.